Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Orlando City in the Moving Forward series episode, and we're now getting to the part where we started to talk about teams that got eliminated in the second round, and it took a while to basically go over all the team that got eliminated in the first round. But now, as I said, we're getting into the teams that eliminated in the second round in the Moving Forward series episode, and before you know it, I'm going to be finishing this Moving Forward series episode. In fact, I'm going to try to do as much as possible because, with the preseason that is about to start, and some cases, with Inter Miami starting their preseason as soon as on Friday, I'm gonna have to start doing the season preview for all of these teams, especially the season preview for these teams that's gonna be participating in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and Orlando City is gonna be one of those teams I'm gonna first talk about in terms of the season preview of all 2019 for this upcoming season. But that being said, for Orlando City, how should you say this season for Orlando City? I mean, you could say that, it's been an incredible season for Orlando City. I mean, they had the best points total in their club history, and not to mention that post League Cup run, that second half of the season where they were by far the hottest team in the league, and that was probably the best I've seen Orlando City have played probably since when we saw them make that run all the way to the final of the MLS is back tournament. But unfortunately, just like that MLS is back tournament, we made it to the final. They falter in the final hurdle against the Portland Timbers, and in this case, it kind of ended in a playoff run where I legitimately thought that this team could go all the way and win this whole competition. But unfortunately, they stumble against what is the team that eventually did go all the way and win this competition. That is the Columbus Crew. But despite that, they did finish with an 18-9-7 record and finished with 63 points. Again, that's the best points total that they have in club history, and the first time they hit the 60-point mark. They scored 55 goals this season, which sounds very low considering what we saw in the second half of the season. I mean, they were scoring tons of goals in the second half of the season, and I'll talk about why maybe that's kind of the reason why they only scored 55 because as we look in the first half of the season, that was kind of the opposite of what Orlando City was doing in the second half of the year. But they gave up 39 goals, which their defense has always been good, and this year, no surprise that is the case. And they have a goal differential of plus 16, and they finished second in the Eastern Conference. And even though it was kind of far away from FC Cincinnati finishing in first place, FC Cincinnati had an incredible season. Like nobody was going to be finishing first. They were pretty much battling that second position with a lot of different Eastern Conference team, and in the end, they were able to win that. Despite that, they did get eliminated by the Columbus Crew in the second round. And again, that game, if I remember, and I'll kind of maybe talk about a little bit more when we get to the what went wrong. But that was a game where they just looked very complacent, even though they didn't need to be. But in terms of the head coach, you got Oscar Pereira. He's been there since 2020, and then the chief soccer officer, Luis Muzi. He's been there since 2019. Both of those guys that I'm pretty sure a lot of Orlando City fans have say that they should uh, receive contract extension because of how good they've done to this team, and has really turned around the fortune of this team. I mean, it's hard to believe. People forget that this team was just a walking mediocrity in the first couple of years of existence. This team has been a regular playoff contender and now started to become an MLS Cup contender in these last couple of years. Now, in terms of top goal scorer, you got Facundo Torres with 14 goals, followed by Duncan McGuire with 13 goals. Then you got Ojeda with 6 goals, Ivan Angulo with 5 goals, and Enrique with 4 goals. Top assist leader, you got the recently departed Maurizio Pereira with 12 assists, which is not a big surprise because Pereira has been the most important player in terms of the playmaking for this team for a couple of years, and this is where we'll talk about in just a bit of how it's going to be interesting to see how they're gonna replace him. Even though they just got a guy that is considered to be an icon in the league, and definitely a legendary player from the Seattle Sounders. But you also got Ojeda with 10 assists, Angulo with 8 assists, Santos with 5 assists, and Arujo or Arajo, depending on how you pronounce it on a given day, with 4 assists for this Orlando City team. Now, looking at the last 5 seasons for Orlando City, again, this is the best season that they've ever had in club history with an 18-9-7 record and finished with 63 points and finished second in the league. But before that, they finished 7th with a 14-6-14 record and finished with 48 points. Then they finished 6th with a 13-12-9 record and finished with 51 points. Then they finished 4th with an 11-8-4 record with 41 points in the COVID short season. And then in 2019, this was before Orlando City was still considered to be the laughing stock of the league, finishing in 11th place with 9, 10, and 15 record and finished with 37 points. Now, in terms of average attendance, 20,590, which is good for third team in the league. Now, I know that there has been fans that have criticized the fact that there's been a lot of empty seats at Exploria Stadium, and it's very noticeable. Both too. I mean, when you of course decide to wear purple and have bunch of purple seat, it's kind of very noticeable. All the empty seats around Exploria Stadium. But I will give Orlando City a bit of a pass with the way that Florida Heat is no joke in the summer. I mean, the Florida Heat is definitely brutal, and especially I will say that when Orlando City does pack Explorer Stadium, that place is one of the most intimidating atmosphere in the league. I mean, that stadium really erupt in a big playoff game. We saw that even in that Columbus Crew game, and that yeah, even though I know that they've been having some attendance issue, especially during the summer month. Think as the season goes along, you can see the stadium will start to be more packed every single game, and a lot of that is the team started to play much better. But also the weather started to improve as the season goes along, and also not to mention, Orlando City, along with Inter Miami, they're probably leading the league in terms of weather delays. Orlando has always been a place that has been been uh, been been a problem in terms of thunderstorm being delaying games. So yeah, there's also that in terms of if fans complain that there's too many empty seats in Orlando City game. Well, I think it's mainly due to the fact that there's a lot of thunderstorm around and the game is delayed for quite a long time. I think fans are either probably staying away from going to the games or just decided to not stick around and wait for the delay is over. Now, in terms of MVP for this Orlando City team, I mean, this is probably one of the toughest MVP I had to choose because there's a lot of players on this Orlando City team that perform well and could easily uh, be MVP. I could have easily gone with Maurizio Pereira again, as I've always done before. I could have even gone with Duncan McGuire having an incredible first season and putting Daryl DK type of number. But in the end, I'm just gonna go with Facundo Torres, and I know this feels like it's bit cheap considering I know he's a top goal scorer, but he's not really just the most important player of this team. But I'm just gonna go with that because there's a lot of player on this Orlando City team that you could argue easily deserve to be MVP, especially some of the new guys that they bought in the off season that really hit MVP level as the season goes along. And then in terms of disappointment, again, this is one that is kind of tough because there really isn't a lot of players on this Orlando City team that underperform. I'm just gonna go with Arjan Kara, and again, this feels like it's a very simple kind of cheap kind of pick because it wasn't really his fault. The fact that he didn't have a good season, he kind of lost his spot to Duncan McGuire after McGuire again having a Daryl DK kind of season, and that we talk about him in terms of being maybe the next Daryl DK. Forget him being the next Daryl DK. He's Duncan McGuire, and he's the guy that is going to be the next big number nine that Orlando City is going to be sold off for a big amount of money. But of course, the guy that he replaced Arjan Kara kind of lost his spot and eventually lost his position to even be on this team as he was sold off during the summer transfer window. And then of course the young player to watch again, Duncan McGuire. I mean that's pretty easy. Like if there's one of the easiest pick in terms of who is the young player to watch out of all my moving forward series, it's got to be Duncan McGuire. I mean, this is a guy that, again, if Orlando City is very smart in terms of his development, and as long as he doesn't go in the same problem that Daryl DK has had, which has been issue with injuries and stuff like that. And there's even a rumor that he was actually gonna maybe even go to the Daryl DK route, decided to go to play in the English Championship, but Orlando City basically turned that offer down. And I think it's a good idea because I think it's too soon. I think he needs another season under his belt in MLS and with Orlando City to prove that yeah, there's going to be more offer for him. But we talk about the U.S. been looking for a number nine for a very long time. If Duncan McGuire can have another good season, and if he is going to be started to be on the national team and can perform at a good rate, maybe finally the U.S. have found their number nine that they've been desperately looking for the past couple of years. Now, what went right for this Orlando City team? Again, best regular season in club's history with 63 points total. They were the hottest team in the East post League Cup run. And again, in terms of their record post League Cup run, 8-1-2, and those 8 wins that they had were not against easy opponent. They were against some really tough opponent and teams that we might say that they might be fighting against them in the playoffs. And that of course turns out to be the truth because they one of those teams that they beat during that run was the Columbus Crew, and that was the game that I think that if you want to look at probably the best game and the highlight of this season for Orlando City, that's the one to do so. I mean, that Cardiac Cats moniker with Orlando City definitely was reborn in that game after being down 3-1 and came back to win 4-3 in that game. I mean, Explorer Stadium was just absolutely electric. And by the way, this might be the last time I'll talk about how Orlando City home stadium is going to call Explorer Stadium because I think today they have just changed it to a new name. I forgot what the new name is, but this will be the last time I'll mention the fact that this, of course, is Explorer Stadium, and it's going to take a while also for me to forget to not mention it's not called Explorer Stadium anymore. Just like when Explorer bought the right, I was still calling this stadium the Orlando City Stadium because that's what's the name of the stadium before Exploria bought the right, and now a new company bought the rights to this name. But yeah, they were beating some really good team: Columbus, Cincinnati, New England. When New England was still well, I think New England was kind of going for a downturn, but still not an easy team to beat. And they even beat St. Louis, the top seed in the Western Conference too. So yeah, this was a really good Orlando City team and a team that has everything that I would imagine a team that could make a cup run, which is when you are heading into the playoffs hot. Yeah, that's usually means that you're probably the most dangerous team and a team that no one wants to play against. But again, as I said, unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for him. But also a lot of reason why their run of form was so good post League Cup form is all the pieces that they bought in the offseason finally clicked. And I think this is kind of what we thought was going to happen, or at least what many Orlando City fans were hoping it happened. Where in the first half of the season, a lot of these new pieces it didn't quite work out. But again, a lot of that has to do with it takes time for new players to come into the league to adjust to the league and start to perform at the rate that they should be. And I think Orlando City did exactly that. Where while these guys were struggling early in the season, eventually they figure it out, and that's why they had that second half of the season, and why we saw last season when they make so many big moves. We knew that this was going to be a good team, but once all those pieces reach to their potential, this is going to be a dangerous team, and we saw exactly that in the second half of the season. So what went wrong for this Orlando City team? Again, not really much that went wrong for this team. I mean, obviously, I think the thing that went wrong the most is that disappointing second round exit to Columbus, and again, it's unfortunate that they had to face against a really good team like Columbus, but it felt like it was a beatable, winnable game, especially at home, and especially as I mentioned before, how it was kind of inadvertently they were being very, kind of how do you say it? They were very oh god, I don't know what I can't think of the word on top of my head, but I think they were very kind of like playing scare in other worse. And it's weird to say that because they're playing at home in front of their home fans. They shouldn't be playing scare against a crew team that, yes, I know Columbus has a really good attack, but really no need for them to play scare. They also have some good attacking threat too, and especially it just feels like conservative. I think that's the word I was thinking about of Oscar tactics in that game in the second round exit. I mean, that's going to be something that's going to be questioned and probably still are questioned in the off season. But just again, if they were being aggressive in that game, I think they would have won that game against the Columbus Crew. They met Miami in the round of 32 of the Leagues Cup. So anytime you meet Inter Miami in the Leagues Cup, that means you gotta step aside and let them have their moment because that's how the Hollywood script has to continue, and they were kind of on par of the sideshow in terms of the Hollywood script ending that Inter Miami has had in the Leeds Cup. And then of course the slow start coming out of the gate, especially on the attack, and again a lot of that is what I said before, how it takes time for a lot of these new pieces that they bought in the offseason to really reach their potential, and we saw the growing pains of that in the first half of the season. Now, moving forward, what does this team need? Well, obviously, they still need a DP number 10. And again, talking about them making a big move of getting an icon of MLS and a legend in the Seattle Sounders, that is Nico Ladero. I still think that's not enough for them to get a difference maker. Yes, Nico Ladero, I know he has done some great things in this league, but he's a guy that, as what we saw last year with the Seattle Sounders, he's more of a guy that I think would be a great piece to have when you're coming off the bench, and not really a guy that basically is leading the line. I mean, if that's the case, they might as well just kept Maurizio Pereira, because between him and Ladero, they're almost the same age. So yeah, there's no doubt that this team definitely still needed a DP number 10, and they do have a DP spot open. So I'm expecting that that's probably going to be the spot that they're going to fill it out either in the beginning of the season, or maybe heading into the 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 secondary transfer window. Will Duncan McGuire follow up his incredible rookie season? So again, it was an incredible rookie season for Duncan McGuire, but what's now even tougher for him is to follow that up. I mean, it's going to be tough for him to follow that up, especially with the 13 goal season that he has. But if you want to be a guy that is going to be scouted by a lot of good team in Europe, you need to follow that up and have another good season, and we'll see whether or not if he can do so. I think he will. I think he, at times that last season, you can see that when he is in form, he is a guy that is arguably one of the best number 9 in the league, and definitely probably the best American number 9 in the league. And that's saying something, because when you look at the other American number 9 in Brandon Vasquez and Jesus Ferreira, they were doing pretty well last season too. Although I might not, I don't think you could say the same case about Brandon Vasquez, because he was kind of struggling a little bit in last season. But of course, the other thing that they need besides a DP number 10 is another starting center back, because they lost Antonio Carlos this offseason. That is definitely a big loss for them. So they're going to looking trying to get a replacement. I mean, Rodrigo Schlegel can definitely slot into that role alongside with Robin Janssen, but preferably they would want to have another center back, or even maybe a depth center back too, because again, I think Schlegel is ready to slot into that role in the starting spot. They still need to have some more depth if they, of course, want Schlegel to be still in that spot, because he's the guy that is supposed to be the depth pieces in that center back position, and that there's no doubt that they're going to be looking for another center back, either in this off season or as the season goes along. And then, of course, lastly, they're back in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and there could be a chance where they could be facing against Tigres once again in March. So one of the things that was kind of also disappointing for this Orlando City team is the fact that they really played Tigres very well. I mean, that two-legged affair where they play Tigres, and the fact that they were able to work out a nil-nil draw on the road in Mexico, in Volcan, nevertheless, a place that is pretty much the house of horror for all MLS team that enter that building. The fact that they were able to work a nil-nil draw and heading into that second leg, I mean, it looked like they had a chance to beat the almighty Tigres. Now, obviously, it didn't happen. They end up losing 1-0 in that game. But what I will say is that they'll probably learn their lesson from that game, and they're going to be more hungry to try to 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 beat Tigres again. If there is going to be a rematch in March, and again, it's not guaranteed, because they still have to play against Calvary, and that I know Calvary plays in the Canadian Premier League, but Canadian Premier League teams can give MLS team a tough battle. I mean, just as the Vancouver Whitecaps a couple of years ago, how that went in the Canadian Championship against Calvary. I mean, again, I think this is going to be very, very interesting to see, and that they cannot overlook Calvary and already think about the Tigres matchup. But if they do get, get the better of Calvary, which I think they should be, it should be very interesting to see how that rematch is going to be between them and Tigres. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at Orlando City in the Moving Forward series episode. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and what do you think went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this Orlando City team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.